every week I have some things that I try to plug. One of them is the Evidence Management Community Forum on Facebook. I would encourage you to join that forum. It's just a place where evidence managers, evidence custodians, no matter where you're from, can go and post questions, get information. Uh, and I'll answer some questions here because two more popped up and I have a very short attention span. So I'll get back to those just in a little bit. So join that forum. Please avail yourself of that opportunity. There are about 560 people on that particular forum, and I see questions posted there regularly. I, being old and aged, am not on social media as often as I should, so I don't see all the questions. But sometimes people will email me and say, "Hey, check the Facebook community forum because there's a question that you should jump in or weigh in on." I would encourage you to do the same. And if you're interested in learning more about what I do and what we do here at the Evidence Management Institute, please check out our website at evidencemanagement.com. There are a lot of resources that we put on our website and information about future classes. Not to bury the lead, but we're going to talk about those a little bit today. So look us up on evidencemanagement.com. But today we're going to talk about evidence locker technology. Um, to me, any type of technology related to or specific to evidence is fairly fascinating and fairly important. I get excited about packaging tape, and I could even argue with people about packaging tape, which might be a sad commentary on my existence, but these things matter. The details matter when it comes to evidence management. The things that we do, the products that we select, the processes that we use matter. And they matter because they each help us take care of evidence more appropriately, more efficiently, more effectively, and more sustainably. So today we're going to talk about evidence locker technology. Now, this is episode Q. The last episode was episode 5000. I have lost my list, so now we're just randomly and arbitrarily assigning episode numbers. I should have just erased that from the slide altogether, but I kind of like the randomness. The last time we met, the last time we were on, we talked about kind of the future, the very near future of evidence management. And when I look at the very near future of evidence management, there are some really cool technologies out there that you're going to be able to leverage and bring into your operations that are going to help you do your job better, that are going to help you track things better, that are going to help you keep better accountability for the evidence that you store, uh, and do it in a different way. So those are the kinds of things I think are cool to talk about. I think it's interesting to have these discussions and to think about even technology that's not necessarily new technology but newly applied to evidence management. I think those discussions have value and there's purpose. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That slide is completely left over from last week and I forgot to delete it. But on the last uh, podcast or webinar or whatever we want to call this, I talked about our 2021 schedule. And my goal was to release our 2021 schedule today live on this broadcast. There's just something so dramatic about announcing something live on a broadcast. Uh, but our training schedule was delayed by the election. There was some difficulties in gathering all the results. One of the things that I forgot about, and because the last year has just been completely erased, it takes a while to put these things together. So it's still coming. It's just not going to be this week. We will definitely resume kind of the road show in 2021. It's just we don't have all the details today. But I do have kind of target locations and places where we plan on being. I've talked with folks in several different areas, and I have, excuse me, things in the works in several locations to give you an idea of where we're trying to go next year. And then we have some prospective locations, places that we would like to be in 2021. It's still wide open. In 2021, we're going to try to do three classes in California. Three West Coast classes, one in San Diego, one in the LA area, and then one in Northern California. Uh, I think there are so many agencies in California, and it's one, and it's also beautiful out there. So selfishly, I'm trying to find places like that, like San Diego. I'll go there anytime. We're going to work on doing a class in Omaha, Nebraska. We're going to do one in Springfield, Missouri. We're going to be in Las Cruces, New Mexico, up in Pittsburgh, Indianapolis. We're working on an arrangement or agreement for a Colorado class, a couple of Texas classes. We'll go back to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and a couple places in Ohio we're looking at. So we try to schedule these classes all over the map every year. We want to do between 15 and 20, maybe 22 classes in 2021. It really depends on the pandemic. We're going to start scheduling as early as we can for a 2021 start date, February, March of 2021. But again, we don't necessarily control all of those details. If you're listening and you're in any one of these regions, we'd love to go to Florida. We'd love to go to the Pacific Northwest. I'd love to do a class in Oklahoma. Uh, Anywhere in the South, we have some gaps, some missing places on the schedule in the South and the Northeast. So if you're interested in hosting a class and you're listening, or you listen to this at another time and you think, hey, that would be cool, please let me know. We would love to come out and do this training live and in person. So that was just a pitch for our 2021 classes. We will be releasing the schedule as soon as we can firm it up, and we'll be putting those out on our website. You can go to the website at evidencemanagement.com and sign up for updates if you're interested. We'll try not to fill your inbox with junk. But today we're going to talk about temporary evidence lockers, and I'm not going to spend all of my time talking, even though I'm really enamored with the sound of my own voice, because that's been just a byproduct of the pandemic. Is That's all I see. But when it comes to temporary evidence lockers, there are just a few important details about them. I mean, their function is pretty limited. They need to provide secure, controlled access, a place that is secure, that cannot be accessed by someone else. It's one of the fundamental foundational building blocks for evidence custody. It's really the first house that it goes to in your evidence operations. That's not a squad car or a bag or another way of transporting the evidence to the station. So once it's at the station, it provides that secure point of submission into the evidence operations. Now, there are a couple of different things that are important about temporary evidence lockers. Having multiple sizes is a great idea. Making sure that they're compartmentalized. Even refrigerated storage needs to be compartmentalized because we want to prevent and eliminate even the potential for cross contamination of evidence. And temporary evidence lockers have been around for decades and decades, but there have always been some limitations with these temporary lockers. One, most of them are unidirectional. I mean, they're used to submit evidence into the system. It goes one way. And that's because generally they lock when they're closed, or they should, and you can't get back in. So that two-way flow of evidence is prevented in most temporary evidence lockers that exist. Second limitation that I just briefly want to touch on, and Marty, if I'm going over things that you already plan on talking about, I apologize in advance. Uh,
No worries.
Chain of custody is problematic with temporary evidence lockers. And the reason chain of custody is a bit problematic is because this static box that has no human presence, that has nothing in it other than just a place to put evidence, we don't know what time it went into the locker. Oftentimes, we don't know who truly put the evidence in the locker. Uh, we just don't know certain basic pieces of chain of custody that we really expect to know about every movement of evidence. But you can't do that with traditional temporary evidence lockers. My another kind of limitation of most temporary evidence lockers, and this is really a weekend thing. Um, I know it would happen sometimes when I was working and was in charge of the evidence management unit at our agency, that our lockers would fill up over the weekend. And when those lockers fill up, they're typically being filled up by young gung ho officers that are working deep nights, and they fill the lockers up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they have no more place to put evidence. So they'd have to call somebody in. I'd never had any idea what the capacity of our temporary evidence lockers was. It would have been really nice to know how many were full, how many were remaining, how much room we had left in the system, just so that we could make better decisions, make better planning decisions. The last limitation of temporary evidence lockers is that they are a completely analog technology. It's a box with a lock in most cases. That's what most people have, is a box with a lock. There's no integration. There's no ability to integrate with an RMS or with an EMS. So those are some of the limitations of temporary evidence lockers, and that's why I get excited to talk about different ways or better ways to do it. And that's why I've got Marty and John here from Realtime Networks, because there's a big what if. What if you could provide all of the limit or all the functionality that you need without all of those limitations that I just went over? And I probably wouldn't have asked the question if that weren't possible. And that's why I've got Marty Powers here and John Murray from Real Time Networks to talk about their solution to this particular set of problems. Now, I'm going to try to talk through this transition, but I'm going to make Marty the presenter if I could find it, and I will let you take over and share your screen. There we go. That worked so
Let me know.
smoothly. Uh,
Perfect.
really proud of
Good.
us. That worked well. So you just tell us what we don't know, Marty.
Sure. 1 second. Let me just get this back over. Okay. Everyone sees the screen there? So again, it's Marty Powers. I also have John Murray, our sales engineer here as well, just to go over the evidence management. I thought I'd start off by just saying that, what we do, sort of our mission statement, we provide enterprise security, safety, and accountability for tracking assets, people, and key systems. Now, we do that through a variety of different ways. What we're going to talk about today is Asset Tracer, our smart lockers. We have had another podcast about Key Tracer, which is our smart key system. And we also have something called it real-time mobility, or which tracks things in real time in amongst the facility and outside as well. Um, there's an example of one of the lockers. And by the way, we put a PowerPoint together. We were thinking about doing a live demo, but we thought it might be better for the podcast just to focus on the PowerPoint. If anyone wants a live demo, we're happy to oblige. There's an example of a locker right there that we have. Now, again, why smart evidence lockers? Again, to Sean's earlier point, to promote security, accuracy, and precision of the chain of custody. That's the main reason that you want it. Taking away that manual process and codifying it. Again, it tells you the who, when, where, and how. So again, you're not having to write down in a book or maybe an Excel spreadsheet and make it a manual process. And everything is actually entered into the locker as you come up to the terminal. And as you enter the notes, everything is put into a report that can be emailed off to officers at various times when that information is needed. And it provides a stable chain of custody is what we're trying to do. And what we're doing today is basically a trust-based system. And we're trying to move away from that and computerize it. So that way, again, you have something that's less likely to tamper with, or perhaps less likely to make error, a human error as well. So what kind of problems are we really solving by making a smart locker as opposed to a sort of manual system? It's those basically 2 a.m. deposits or withdrawals. I hear that from officers all the time in terms of when they put it in the middle of the night, who is actually codifying that. And keep in mind, when you go up to this smart locker, just like our key system, you can use a access control card, a PIN. You can even biometrics, whether it be a fingerprint or facial or palm. And that way you know definitively that it's that individual coming up to actually either put in something or withdraw something, along with the notes that go along with that. Again, also checking out items for court or evidence. A lot of times, again, things can be prone to error. People do make mistakes. So what we do is, again, in the software, is we have the ability to put information in there. It's very easy. It's a workflow system that allows you to, again, codify everything there. Evidence can now be assigned to other officers with email alerts. So once things go into the locker, there's an ability to email people. And also when the locker becomes full, back to what Sean said earlier, we have the ability to send out notifications to let people know that the locker is at capacity. You may want to look at either maybe putting it somewhere else, or the locker is expandable too. So if you wanted to add more boxes or columns in the future, you could, if need be. And again, it's accountability of physical security on sensitive items, again, namely currency and drugs. And again, now and again, I've heard before there could be issues with people having dependencies or needing money, and you want to make sure that you take that that likelihood away. So again, you always know when someone's accessing it with the identification and the notes. And so again, it's easy to track those types of things or misuse. So also another issue I hear too is understaffed and overwhelmed. So a lot of times people just don't have the time perhaps to do the proper documentation. So again, this allows you to have perhaps less staff because they're having to go up and just enter it into the terminal. So it could reduce the amount of manpower and the work you have to do. And also there's a cost of square footage I keep on hearing about in terms of not having even the room to do it. So again, you could go as small as a one door or four door or two door or as big as. Um, and again, with our lockers as well, it's sort of the Legos or the IKEA of lockers without the annoying names like that one down below. I can't even pronounce that one. And I don't know if anyone's put together IKEA furniture before. It's very emasculating when your wife or partner and your 10-year-old tell you you're doing it wrong. We won't do that to you. We put the lockers together for you. And what we do is we drop it off, and it's not screwed together. We weld it together. It's very well made. There's 16 gauge metal as well. So again, with this, it's all done for you, and we drop it off, and you can add more columns in the future. It's a very modular approach. And the reason we did this is in the past, when you're looking at different types of lockers, and again, these are evidence lockers, but we also have lockers for guns or tasers. And the issue they had is that a lot of times you'd have to get one locker, and it might be 6 doors or 10 doors, and that's the commitment you have. So what we try to do is make a module. So a module would typically be a 2 door or 4 door. And by the way, these ones are vented here. Typically in evidence, they're not. The reason they're vented is if you ever had things you had to plug in there, it needs to breathe. It doesn't have to be that way. We have clear doors as well. Again, not typically used for evidence, but we have different options there. Right here, I'm showing you 7 different styles of doors that you can have. You can even put shelves in the larger doors. We actually have 2 more. There's 9 now. We're coming up with different sizes all the time. So depending on what size you think you need or want, you can go from a 1 large door to an 8 small door. So again, we just need to know exactly what size you want, and we can put together, and you can add more in the future. So basically, it's a true two-way chain of custody for evidence movement. This is what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think I'll leave it over to John Murray, our sales engineer. You want to take it from here, John?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to evidence lockers, obviously there's going to be an element of needing that physical security for those assets that you're putting in there. So with the 16 gauge steel, it's going to give you enough security. So it'll be a pain for someone to try and get in there. But it's not meant to be a safe. If you're looking for a safe, then there's some other options kind of out there. And with our system in particular, we have quite a few options for those compartment sizes based on the needs of the facility. With those modules as well, we do have some refrigerated modules, which allow you to keep biological evidence in a secure location. And within that refrigerated module, you can split it up to multiple doors. So to his point earlier, we can actually keep that biological evidence separated so that there's no cross-contamination. And as Marty mentioned earlier, it is modular and scalable in its design. So, based on your particular use case, you can fit it to really any area or evidence requirement. And you can kind of interpolate, what sizes of evidence you're probably going to be seeing, and you can kind of fit your system around that way. But if you ever find that there's some larger assets coming in, then you can always expand in the future there. Yeah, and it's a mix and match, so completely custom.
One thing I wanted to clarify, and I don't know if you're going to cover it, but also want to make sure that people know that there are 2 different ways to do temporary evidence lockers, and real time does something pretty interesting. They can do pass-through lockers just like traditional temporary evidence submission lockers are pass-through. But the cool thing about the way real time does it is that there is a door, a recorded door on both sides to where you truly capture every granular element of that chain of custody. You know that you know the time that the person put it in the locker. You know who put it in the locker. You know which locker they put it in specifically. And you also know who took it out on the backside, specifically, granularly, what time that evidence was taken out and removed from the locker. That data is missing from, I would probably say, 95% of most evidence operations. That specific granular data is missing from chain of custody records pretty ubiquitously, pretty consistently across the board. That's missing information. Uh, so this is a way of trapping that data uh, digitally and keeping it recorded in perpetuity to where that chain of custody record just becomes stronger and stronger as you go. So I'll stop interrupting for a little bit.
All right, you can switch it over, Marty. Yeah, so with these locker systems, to that point of having that granularity of exactly who accessed it and when they accessed it, um, the asset tracer in particular provides a lot of different access methods. So this can be a simple PIN code that's assigned to every individual who would need to input and take out evidence from the locker. But you can also use your existing access control cards for your facility. So there's no additional credential that they need to remember to carry around with them. Or alternatively, we can use a biometric, so that could be face, palm, fingerprint, or iris scanning. Um, and with those biometrics, more recently, we have the ability to screen for temperature as well before individuals are placing anything in those lockers, or alternatively removing. So it gives you the ability to really control the access to those locations. Now, with these credentials, the biometrics in particular, the specific ones that the asset tracer uses utilize the ability to actually screen whether or not there's any blood flow or body heat in the particular part of the body that's being scanned. So, you can't bring a severed finger and get into the locker. Not that you would, but it just reduces that potential.
That definitely happens a lot in spy movies. So
Exactly.
it's good that you've accounted for that.
Yeah. And
There's a pass-through.
to that pass-through point again, with that security, we have that granularity on both sides of the locker. So on the input and the removal of the asset, we know exactly when it was put in, when it was, how long it's been in there, who put it in, and then also who removed it, when they removed it, and even how many different pieces of evidence they removed. So they can note all of that during the transaction, and it just gives you those extra data points for that tracking. Yeah, so to this point, it's taking that existing method that you've seen before. We've all seen CSI when people are rooting through that evidence room where they've all dropped off bags of drugs and money. This reduces all of that sort of ability for people to go in and take things at will. The chances of that happening are pretty slim, and it probably doesn't happen that often. But it gives you that certainty that it is not going to happen. And if it does happen, then you've got a paper trail that can't be edited or altered by the end user. And with the RTNHub software that actually runs the evidence locker, it's going to give you all the real-time reporting and alerts of every time evidence is deposited, how long it's been in there, and when the compartments are full, because that is essentially going to be one of your biggest issues, is not necessarily people taking items out of the locker that shouldn't, um, because most people are pretty reasonable. But it's going to be when the locker's full, when there's no compartments left, or maybe there's no compartments left that are the size that are needed for evidence that needs to be put in. So it's going to give you that ability to actually see all of that information in real time and make more educated decisions on your management efforts. And we've got all the reporting in the back end for all of these transactions. So in this report here, this is sort of a step-by-step deposit withdrawal report. It's going to be very granular. It shows you every time a locker is opened, tells you every time a locker is closed, tells you exactly who deposited what item, and you can see the descriptions that that individual put in there. And you can even see the item and case number in there as well. So there's a lot of room for you to add custom fields and custom information. And with a product like the Asset Tracer and RTNHub, because Realtime Networks, we do all of the software and physical architecture in-house. Um, in the end scope, if there's a particular field that you need or a particular functionality that's required, then we can accommodate for those very specific requirements, and we have done that in the past. And we can see here, we've got the locker inventory reports. This is one of those reports that you would be able to view and see what assets are or evidence are currently in the locker system, who put them there, how long they've been in there, what time they were put in there, that sort of thing. And it will show you the specific compartment that evidence resides in.
I can speak to this one. Some of the other considerations you might want to think about as well is found property. Again, I find that sometimes we do this more at prisons than we do when it comes to police stations. You can do it there as well, where when someone walks in, there could be a locker up front, and it can all work on the same software. But if they want to check something there before they go in, or if you find something like a wallet or some ID or cash or things of that nature, it can be up front where people can self-administer. They can go up themselves with a PIN number to get it themselves, and you have a trackability with that as well. And it's not just for evidence, as I mentioned before. It can be for guns or tasers or radars. And again, I think from talking to Sean, best practices would be that you'd want it in 2 different locations, but it can all be in the same database, same software, perhaps different terminals, but it can still work together. And also integrations as well to EMS or record management systems as well. I mean, we have APIs. It's an open system. And we're a software company, so we're quite good at the integration piece. So we have an open API and some SDKs. So if you're looking for things like that, we can assist in those areas as well. And again, just to end off, we're trying to provide security and controlled access is what we're trying to do with the evidence lockers. And I think it's about all we had for presentation. I just end on this slide, but I'm not sure if there's any questions at all. What, sorry?
Could you go back one slide?
Yeah, sure, Sean.
I just want to hit
Another one?
no one more forward. The other consideration slide.
Oh, can we go forward?
Yeah, forward to right there. Okay, stop. Yep. So I just want to hit on a couple of these and kind of maybe hit a little more on 1 and 3, because one of the things that I've always thought would be cool, and I'll try to translate some of the Canadian just calm, subtle explanation to more of an Americanized understanding of this technology and where I think it could be really freaking cool. I've always thought that it would be really, really cool if we had an ability, and I've thought this throughout the pandemic, if there was an ability to return property to owners in a way that captures all the chain of custody transition, documentation that records the movement and takes all of their information, records, and makes sure that they're the actual specific person who could do it, kind of like an Amazon locker. I'm enamored with Amazon. If you hate Amazon, I apologize in advance, but sometimes I order things that I don't even need just to get it that same day. And with Amazon, the technology is such that you can order things, put it in a locker, and go pick up the locker. It will send you a code that is unique to you, and then you pick up that item, and that entire process is carried out without human interaction other than someone putting it in a locker. Same thing with property releases. I mean, when I worked evidence, it would annoy me sometimes when I would get kind of laser focused on a task in the back and I would hear the little buzzer go off. There's someone at the counter that's there to pick up evidence. One of the cool things that could be done by leveraging the same technology is you could put stuff in the locker, notify people that it's there, excuse them, send them a text, send them an email, give them a QR code that is specific to them, that authorizes them to pick up the item. They could walk up to the terminal, put their thumbprint down to make sure that they are who we say they are, scan their DL, all that fun stuff could be done through the technology, and then it's released to them. The door is closed, and the chain of custody record is completely encoded and encapsulated in that transaction. That's next level stuff that would be really cool to see uh, in evidence rooms. I just think that there is a huge place for that. And the third thing I want to hit that make sure people understand is the way great technology is designed is it's designed to integrate with other technologies. And, if you've listened to me for any length of time, I believe that there are very fundamental, important functionalities and things that need to happen within an evidence management system to appropriately document and take care of the evidence process from cradle to grave. A system like this can integrate with a system like that and work in concert to to automate processes in a way that you just can't do. It doesn't exist right now. Uh, so I get excited when I hear things like this because it's cool technology and it's so it could be a game changer in a lot of different areas for evidence custodians. I mean, it can reduce, some of the headaches of what we do, and it can shore up some of the weaknesses in the way we currently do things, and that's always a good idea. So that's just kind of what I wanted to hit on. Those two specific things are really really important. And so that notwithstanding, uh,
Yeah,
I think we have a couple of questions, and let me look through. And to answer one earlier question, um, as far as gov deals, I've not had experience working with gov deals, but I would say so this question is going to seem kind of like a headless apparition disconnected from this conversation, but that's one of the reasons why I think the community forum is so great. Those kinds of questions, there are agencies that deal with gov deals all the time. There are other agencies that deal with different auction sites. I've not had any experience with them. I know that other people have, but that's something that community forum would be great for. Post that question there and see what kind of response that you get. Uh, so that's a question that's uh, totally separate, and I'm showing my inability to multitask here. So Anna has a question just about cost. I mean, is that something that y'all are comfortable talking about, or uh,
yeah, yeah. I don't
$1 billion,
mind. I mean, we
$1
usually
billion
do a
dollars,
what?
less than $1 billion for federal
That's
clients.
exactly what I was going to say. $1
Okay.
billion. Yeah, yeah. It all depends on the size of the door. Some of the limitations are this: is that the size of the door. So the door, I think the smallest one, you're looking at a couple $100 for a small one, and the bigger ones can go up to 800 or 1,000, depending the size of it. There's that to consider. There's the terminal as well. Um, it depends the software you have. I mean, there's ones that some lockers out there have been as little as, some of the small footprints might be as little as $7,000, $8,000. And then, but if you're getting one with multiple doors, 50 or 60, it can go up to $50,000. So it depends. So in it, I would have to have a conversation about it. But that's why I talked about the modularity approach, because in the past you had to commit to a lot of money because you'd have to get 6 or 8 or 10 doors at a time. And so that's why we did it, to bring the cost down and the footprint down as well. And then there is a small reoccurring fee as well. Usually it's 15-10% of the cost that goes into the software. And by the way, it's on-prem. We have it on the server there. We like that for security reasons. It's behind your firewall. We can do it in the cloud as well. And so again, it depends on the size of the purchase, what the size of the cost of the software will be. We do constant updates all the time. So it is worth actually paying into that because you're getting improvements all the time. So does that sort of answer the question? I'm sorry I can't be more direct. It all depends on the size of the locker you're going to have. Hope
I
that
think
helps.
the answer is always it depends, but that at least gives somebody a place to start in terms of thinking about it. Are we talking about $12 or are we talking about $1 billion? Somewhere in between 12 and 1 billion. We've narrowed it down, and the answer is still it depends. But that does give us an idea. And I think I can answer one of the questions that was on the screen. Just ensuring that the system knows what's being in the locker based on what the officer types into the system. I mean, obviously that's just like any evidence management
Mm-hmm.
system. You know, the we rely on the initial data that the officer types into the system to know what is being submitted. So that is definitely uh, that's just the nature of the beast, and that's why I think an
Well, yeah,
integration.
one thing I can add to that. Yeah. I was gonna say one thing I could add to that, Sean, and you're right, integration would help. But I mean, with evidence, you're probably right. I mean, we do have the ability. I don't know if this would play into evidence, but we have RFID stickers that go on there and readers inside the lockers. So, I mean, we do that for typically tasers or guns or expensive or dangerous things that go in there. So you'll know definitively if it's in there, and it'll email you if it's not. Does that play into evidence? Maybe not so much. Tags can go on things and they can be read. That's a possibility. And when you plug things in, like an iPhone or a tablet, an Android or iOS, once you plug it in, it gets power, and there's a unique identifier that tells you it's inside the locker. That might play outside this group in terms of it not being related to evidence, but we do have those capabilities and we do it all the time. So that could play into something in the future if you want to look at that.
All
That
right.
help?
Well, are any other questions from and seeing none, I'm thinking not. But let's just have a moment of awkward silence where we just wait, and I'll just stare at that screen and see if a question comes in. I don't think it is, but I don't want anybody to leave yet, so don't leave because this is really still part of the presentation. Uh, but I think we're going to call it. But I do want to pick out before people start hanging up. Uh, let me try to transition this back because we're scheduling our 2021 episodes of this particular webinar. I love for people to be on here live and watch it live. If you watch it on a podcast at a later date, that's awesome too. But I try to give that schedule out, and our 2021 schedule, the next particular episode for us is going to be December 17th, 2021, the Christmas edition. Uh, so we will be back on December 17th. I'm gonna have to start doing these. Hopefully, my hope is that in 2021 that I do just one of these a month because my goal is to be on the road, either teaching evidence classes or doing consulting work back out in the open again. So my hope is that I'm only available, once a month to do these. But as such, we will be back on December 17th, 2021. I want to thank Marty Powers and John Murray from Realtime Networks for showing us their stuff. And if you have questions, you could reach out to them. Um, I don't know how we're going to accomplish that, but hopefully we will get. Yeah, we should have thought about that. That's a miss, but holler at me. Or did y'all sign up? Do y'all have a little presence on the evidence management community forum there? Not to put you on the spot.
So, sorry, did you asking me? I apologize. You're asking me if I
Yeah,
put
I
something
think
on
on
there?
the evidence management community forum, did I see real time kind of sign up on that as a participant in that
Yeah,
discussion?
I mean, I think I'm pretty sure I did. I hope I did. I'll double check on that. I think I did. Definitely an email came through, so I think that might suggest that I did.
I think you're there.
Um,
So,
I can pass on. I mean, yeah,
yes. So
yeah. I'm happy to pass on. I mean, my I could pass on my cell number or email online if people have a pen at all, if they want more information. It's pretty easy if you have a pen there. It's Marty, MARTY, at Realtime Networks, like you see on the screen right there, .com. And I mean, you can reach out to me there. My direct cell number is 647-200-8450. That's 647-200-8450. Or give me an email. I can send you the 800 number. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And whether it not be us, if you just want some information on different solutions out there, I'm somewhat knowledgeable. Not as knowledgeable as Sean, but I'd like to help you out. So by all means, please reach out to me, and I'll see what I can do for you.
Awesome. Well, I put Marty's contact information in the chat window there. So if you can't reach it, if all else fails, send me an email. I'll get back with you. Or go to the Evidence Management Community Forum on Facebook. Thank you for being here, and we will see you on December 17th. So thanks for participating, and we'll see you next time. Happy
Great. Thanks,
Thanksgiving.
Sean.
You bet. Have a good one.